All right, so let's say you started Merchant's Guild, but then weren't happy with it and went Circle of Fortune, something that I did very recently, and you can see my full thoughts in another video. Or maybe you started Circle of Fortune and now you want to try out for Merchant's Guild. What do? How do you regear your character, since you can't take a lot of your items with you? Well, because I did it recently, today I'm going to talk about the process that I did. Now, before I started my regearing, one thing I did when I was still Merchant's Guild is I just ran through a base empowered mono that I hadn't pushed and just picked up some really simple stuff with life and resistances. I didn't look for damage. I knew for empowered monos, base 100, I wasn't going to need very much damage. I could get it from my skills and from my passives. So I just wanted simple stuff that I could wear to not fall over. Ended up getting like 1.6k life. I was not crit avoid capped, but I capped my res. It was fine. And then I started farming. Now, a big part of that farming was boss rushing, because there's a couple boss drops like Twisted Heart of Ukros, which I wanted to get. And if you want to learn more about efficiently boss rushing in Last Epoch, do be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and look forward to that video coming out over the next couple days. But for now, let's talk about some of the other things I did. Because the first thing that I wanted to do was make sure I could go back to doing roughly the same content I was before, i.e. 200 to 250 corruption. And to do that, I knew that I mostly needed to improve my defenses and get a Ghost Maker. Bone Clemmer Barboot is a relatively common drop. It's a unique gladiator helmet. And if you're stacking Necrotic Res, which this build is, then it's absolutely going to be super, super powerful. And just to make it really easy to do, I swapped from Bleed Lock over to Torment Lock because Torment works better out of the box. And from there, all I really did is go out of my way for specific target farm nodes, such as Sword Dagger nodes or Helmet nodes. Helmet, by the way, is in Spirits of Fire. Sword and Dagger, if I'm remembering correctly, is in the same place where I was farming Twisted Heart of Ukros, which is Reign of Dragons. But that is half-remembered information, so double check over at Maxroll to make sure you have the right place. And if I happen to find an Exalted cache along the way, then I would absolutely go raid it, because I didn't need the best of the best Exalted gear. But I definitely needed a little bit more health, and hey, another damage mod like Chthonic Fissure Spirit Frequency would absolutely be helpful. As a note, Chthonic Fissure Spirit Frequency isn't super critical to the build, but it helps to generate extra hits, make sure everything's applied, and stack a little bit more damned. Certainly more impactful at low gear than high gear. But in addition to that, I used a fairly strict filter, and I also made sure to objective rush. This way, I knew that I wouldn't get bogged down just looking at everything on the floor. Because at the end of the day, most of the stuff on the floor wasn't going to be a direct upgrade for me, and my damage was overall fine, even with a random weapon. I tried Marina's Lost Soul just because one happened to drop. Don't do that, it feels terrible. And then after swapping it for a random wand, I ended up continuing until I got my Ghost Maker. Because Ghost Maker is relatively rare, and because it's hard to target farm swords and daggers, in addition to picking up good items, I was also picking up pretty much any dagger that showed up on my filter. The reason for this is I was using all of my Runes of Ascendance to target Ghost Maker. If there's a relatively rare item that you're trying to target, especially if it's very important as part of your reroll, use all of your Runes of Ascendance for one thing. Don't try to go after 5 items, because you might not get any of them. Whereas here, I felt reasonably confident that I could get the one item that I was looking for, since I was going out of my way to target farm it by 2 different means. So now I've almost leveled up 3 times. I'm about 2/3 of the way to rank 6 in Circle of Fortune, which feels really, really great. I've used a few prophecies, but not a ton. And my gear's in a good spot. So let's go over that in a little bit more detail. All right, time to talk about a few things that I've changed, how my upgrades have gone, and the overall gearing. In terms of build progression, I'm now playing Torment instead of Bleed, since it had lower gearing requirements, and I'm able to do 250 corruption much easier than I was on the previous build, since overall my stats are a lot better. So, going through, I found this. In fact, I found a couple of these, chance to chill with ward retention. I haven't yet focused in on idle prophecies. I'm going to at some point in the future, but I've been kind of rushing rank 6 and trying to get the key unique items, so that's where most of my favor has gone. This one I actually had from before, so it's got increased health, chance to fear on hit. It was really good. I dropped it while I was in the Merchant's Guild, funnily enough, very early on, and I've just been using it ever since. Then I got this recently, I had this one. Chance to apply Damned. It's a fairly new upgrade. While I'm not really going low life yet, I'm only using half of this. The chance for Damned is still extra damage. but I'm trying to find more spell damage for curses. I'm definitely, once I get a couple more ranks and unlock lens slots and lenses and all that, going to focus in, do some idle runs, and fix all of my idols. Now for helmet, I ran all the monoliths I could, target farmed helmet while farming my blessings in Spirits of Fire. I got a Bone Clamor Barboot. It's great for this build, plus it's a really solid generic item since it has int, necrotic res, and word retention. I also made a Ghost Maker. As you just saw, I used all of my Runes of Ascendance since dagger nodes are a little bit frustrating to target. So I ended up getting this one. In fact, I got 2 of them back to back, and now I don't have any LP. My next big upgrade here would be an LP version, but I'm not going to target from that for a bit because my next big goal is Malin's Hubris and the belt. So I'm going to farm Malin's Hubris, then I'm going to head over to the Soulfire Bastion and beat up Firelich Cremoris. I'm pretty sure I can do Soulfire Bastion 3 on this character, but hey, maybe I'm a little bit short on the damage or the defenses. Speaking of, this is the only item that I didn't actually get recently. I've had this for absolute ages. This was one of the swap pieces that I put on, and I've been using it ever since because it's really, really good. It has health, hybrid health. I mean, it's not perfect, but it does reduce the bonus damage taken from crits, which helped a lot when I wasn't initially crit avoid capped. Now, while I was farming for my blessing, crit avoidance in Reign of Dragons, I got a Twisted Heart of Ukaros. I probably would have kept farming until I got a Twisted Heart since it's a lot of power for this build, and it really helps you increase your word. Like right now, I've got 1.3k, but if I start spamming spells, it's going to go up really, really fast, and I tend to sit at 2 to 3k quite frequently. In terms of other pieces, it's really just random junk on the ground that I happen to highlight. Like this dropped, it's a good belt base with cooldown reduction. That means I can not only use Wandering Spirits, but I can sit in Profane Veil for damage immunity a lot more. These just happen to drop. They're okay. I don't think I even need the res. So it's a really mediocre item that I should replace. I'm using none of the suffixes, but the prefixes. Those prefixes, I'm telling you, they're worth it. And my amulet is really just the first bone amulet that I got. When I started upgrading my gear, a lot of these were rare items. I had just done a quick run through again as the Merchant's Guild to get some basic rares of life and res. I do need to fix my lightning res. I need to fix a lot of my reses. This one's supposed to be way overcapped. The rest aren't. And I definitely need a little bit more armor, which is why I'm going to be farming Hierot for a better blessing. But I have to say, it wasn't a very painful experience, and I got most of my gear together quite quickly. Right now, I feel like I'm better geared than I was with Merchant's Guild, and I played Merchant's Guild from level 70 all the way up to 94. I've now done from 94 basically to 97 as Circle of Fortune. And in terms of that, I have a ton of favor to spend right now. I'm just waiting for rank 6. I know I could get to rank 6 faster if I spent all that favor. It would be optimal to do so, but I just wanted to wait. Mostly because right now I'm filling in other pieces that don't specifically need legendary potential. And once I start filling in with pieces that do need LP, that's when I want to spend my favor. But I wanted to see where my gear was. For example, I'm going to spend quite a bit on idols. I know I need those. I'm definitely going to spend some on a chest piece. My chest is abysmal. But hey, maybe I don't need to target too many of these for a little bit. Maybe I need to target gloves. It's really just about getting a better picture of my gear so that I can spend on upgrades which are more meaningful. So what are the big differences? Well, right now I haven't equipped any LP items yet because I haven't run through the Temporal Sanctum. But I do have quite a few LP items that I could potentially use. Not Ghostmaker or Barboot, but several other secondary pieces. A good example of this is Last Steps of a Living if I wanted to go low life. Another good example of this is Exsanguinous if I wanted to go low life. But I'm going to save that until after I've gotten the rest of my gear sorted out. So priority number 1 is to farm Malin's Hubris and the belt whose name I forget off of Firelich Cremoris. This will give me a massive amount of damage and mean all I really have to do from that point on is focus on my defenses. From there, I'm going to start farming LP items, and as I do, I really want to push my corruption to 300 plus so that I can start farming myself an Omni. While Omni is relatively rare, each boss rotation once you get up to about 300 corruption doesn't take all that long, and so long as you don't push your corruption to the point where you can't keep doing it, it shouldn't be very difficult to do. Again, look forward to my boss rush video that'll be coming out soon. Now there's still a lot of gaps in my Exalted gear. In fact, a couple of the items are probably worse than a perfect T20, since they have fully dead affixes such as on my amulet. In the case of the amulet where it really needs to be a bone amulet, I am going to be a little pickier. For everything else, I'm just going to pick up the first T6 or T7 upgrade and slap it on as soon as I find it. But mainly, I'm going to be target farming uniques, and I'm also going to be dumping a ton of favor into prophecies. This way, I should be able to get at least 1 or 2 LP Malin's Hubris, some LP Bone Clamor Barboots, and probably a bunch of Exalted side grades or upgrades as well. Oh, and idols. I'm going to fix idols because those are really, really cheap to target farm with Circle of Fortune. And so, of course, now that I've gotten my gear up to snuff, I can start pushing corruption. And my journey is far from over, since the game's endgame is pretty much gearing your character out, replacing T5 with T6, T6 with T7, T7 with T7, T6, so on and so forth, and eventually your only remaining goal is 4 LP legendaries, which you probably won't find because they're incredibly, incredibly rare. And while doing all this, I've also put a special color on my filter for upgrades for other builds, things that I might want to play after this, including Bleed Warlock, that I very much want to go back to and try. But I'm going to aim for at least really good 1 LP or possibly some 2 LP pieces before I give it another shot, since it was kind of disappointing to be stuck at 0 LP uniques for quite a lot of the gearing process. But hey, hopefully that look into swapping around your gear helped a little bit if you've just changed factions and you're looking for what to do next. If you didn't do step 1 of prepare some basic items beforehand, you can run through normal monoliths. The drops won't be as good, but there's basically no gearing requirements to do normal monos. I mean, okay, if your character is completely naked, you might run into problems, but anything short of that, you'll be okay. And after you pick up a few drops off the floor, it shouldn't be a big deal. And if you're playing online, you could always ask a friend to boost you and carry you until you get a few basic items. And so I'm curious, did you swap factions recently? And if so, did you struggle? What are some of the tips and tricks that you have for other people regarding regearing after swapping factions? Leave your thoughts below. And if you're looking to do some of that regearing yourself, check out my target farming guide as it'll give you a direction to go. Now before I go, a big thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can provide substantial support in creating videos like this. And also, thank you very much to everyone who watched to the end. Swapping factions can be a quite frustrating experience, but it's also exciting because you get to play something new and find tons of upgrades. So I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.